So thanks for coming to my talk today. I'm going to be talking about animal rights scenes in Asia and the unique challenges that people are facing over there. So my name is Ellie. Apart from my street activism, I also advocate for animals online on my YouTube channel and Instagram page. And soon after I started my advocacy online, I realized that the situation is quite different in Japan for vegans and activists, and I saw the need for a culturally appropriate approach in Asia. So to focus my advocacy in Asian regions, I recently co-founded Animal Alliance Asia, and we're organizing the first ever Animal Advocacy Conference, Asia 2020. And there are conferences that already exist in Asia already, but they mainly focus on protecting wildlife animals and companion animals. So unlike the conferences, our conference is focusing on empowering animal rights activists across Asia. So without further ado, I'd like to show you a little promo video. We have more audience now, exciting. Thank you very much for coming. So let me start by telling you a little story of how this conference came about. So I think vegans here all agree that there are a few very common reactions that we get from non-vegan people. In the UK, I think the ones we hear a lot is it's a personal choice to eat meat. But in Japan, we get a different, very common reaction, which is plants have feelings though. When I first heard it from someone random, I just dismissed it. I thought he's just trying to be annoying. But then I heard it also from my mother, my best friend, school teachers, and my endless trolls on my YouTube channel. I finally decided to actually give it some thought. I thought there must be a cultural explanation to this. So I would soon realize that this had something to do with the religious background in Japan, where everything is believed to have spirits. It's called Animism. We say itadakimasu before every meal, which is a very short word, but it basically means I appreciate having to myself all of these lives that were taken for this meal. And when they say lives, it's a very vague word, and it also applies to plants too. And I used to like this word very much before I was vegan. But now that I'm a vegan, I really wish it was as simple as bon appetit. So even though not many Japanese would identify themselves as Shintoists, the belief is so deeply rooted in their culture that it's an automatic reaction to regard lives of plants and animals as equals. This was the beginning of my quest into effective advocacy in international context. And I'm sure every vegan here tries really hard every day to find the best way to talk about veganism without causing the self-defense mechanism in people. We also search for the most effective strategy to bring about systemic change as well. But what's effective in this culture and political context might not be as effective or relevant in another. So this has led me to want to bring together activists across Asia and together take a step closer to a more effective strategy in Asia. We see vegan options everywhere here. The total value of the UK plant-based market is now set to be £443 million. In 2018, Just Eat listed veganism as their top consumer trends. The demand for vegan food ordered through their platform increased by 987%. And in the UK, 1 in 3 people regularly buy plant-based milk. Surely the production and consumption of meat has decreased by now. The answer is no. Despite the progress we see, the global meat production and consumption is actually increasing, and Asia is contributing to it. Capitalism finds its way. The big corporations have started targeting the growing markets in the East. Tyson has bought a majority share in Mumbai-based Godrej Foods, and China has accepted agribusiness investment from giants like Tyson and Smithfield Foods. So meat consumption in China has increased by 700 pounds in the last 3 decades, and now they consume 28% of the world's meat. China is also the largest consumer of factory farmed meat, and they also produce the largest amount of pork. China is also the largest CO2 emitter in the world, which accounts for 30% of the global total. They're also the single largest meat market, and they mainly import from Australia, Brazil, Uruguay, and Russia. And they consume 1/5 of the global fish catch volume. Consumption is a huge problem in China, but if we look at consumption per capita, it's actually quite a different picture. EU, US, and Hong Kong, and Taiwan all consume more per capita. It's the scale of Chinese market population that's contributing to this increase. So these are one of the reasons the effective altruist community is now focusing heavily on Asia. Effective altruist community is a global movement that aims to use evidence to do the good in the most effective way. So it makes sense for them to focus on areas that animals are suffering more. Asia's increasing demand has global implications. China imports 100 million tons of soybeans to feed their livestock, which is 60%. That's more than half of the global trade of soy. And 35% of Brazil's total soybean production was imported by China for animal feed in 2016, and this figure is increasing. Brazil, Argentina, and Paraguay now produce soy for China, which, as everybody here knows, has led to deforestation of the Amazons. The Western diet has found its new market. A new Starbucks opens every 15 hours in China. It's McDonald's second largest market after the US. It's also the biggest market for Yum Brands, which owns KFC and Pizza Hut. Japan has the 5th highest number of McDonald's outlets per capita after the US, New Zealand, Canada, and Australia. And do you know what people eat on a Christmas day in Japan? Due to the clever marketing in the 70s, Christmas in Japan to most people means having KFC. It's the new happy family tradition. And in Hong Kong, apart from the staggering per capita meat consumption, other animal products like eggs and especially cheese is ubiquitous and very popular. Cheese is added to virtually anything you can think of, from desserts, savory snacks to Cantonese cuisine, and even bubble tea. The scale of how animals are bred and exploited are changing too. Most animals raised for meat or dairy are produced on a small or medium-sized farms, but the proportion of factory farming in China is rising. By the end of 2013, China had 53,000 factory-style farms, and they account for a disproportionate production of animal products. For example, in 2003, 4% of China's poultry operations produced 84% of its broiler chickens. And there are multi-story factory farms to breed pigs, with 1,000 pigs on each floor. And they hold 30,000 mother pigs and produce 840,000 piglets annually. Another example of how Western-style farming is arriving in Asia is the floating farm. I'm sure you have recently seen a news coverage on a floating farm. Netherlands has recently started experimenting with an offshore dairy farm with cows inside a 3-story floating building in a port just next to a big city, where cows are milked by robots. The owner says they're aiming to expand their business to Singapore and China now. They know it's the growing market. So now we know the scale of animal agriculture and consumption is increasing in Asia. What about welfare legislation then? I know a lot of you are not happy with how farm animals are treated here, but let's look at the situation in Asia. On a scale of A to G, UK is ranked A on the World Animal Protection Index. Japan and Korea are ranked D, and China E. And in Japan, there is no regulation for farmed animals at all, only no mandatory guidance. For example, pig castration without anesthetic, banned in the EU, no regulation in Japan. Battery cages are banned in the EU, no regulation in Japan. Debeaking of chickens and tail docking of cows, banned in many European countries, no regulation in Japan. Veal crates and gestation crates are still legal in Japan, and they have no regulation on slaughter either. Stunning is not required. So the situation is pretty grim. More meat consumption, more animal suffering, and not enough welfare regulations. Are there animal rights activists fighting for the animals in Asia? The answer is yes, but with many challenges. Here are some types of actions in our movement that are happening globally. I've just categorized them into personal changes and systemic change. I'm sure there are overlaps, but I just wanted to simplify here. So campaigning and lobbying organizations exist, and they are doing an incredible job and making a difference. Incremental but important changes are being made with the laws and regulations. For example, after working with the Humane Society International, Tesco pledged to go cage-free for its business in Malaysia and Thailand by 2028. And 40 brands in China have recently joined the fur-free retailer program. And grassroots activist groups are popping up in many regions in Asia, mostly working through street outreach advocacy, focusing on individual change. Animal rights marches are gaining more traction. To give you some idea, 400 people in Taiwan joined and 250 people in Japan joined. And dog meat market in Busan was shut down in South Korea after decades of campaigning, leafleting, outreach, lobbying, and direct action. Also, Direct Action Everywhere started its chapter in South Korea recently, and they're definitely leading the way with the direct action methods in Asia. But there are unique cultural challenges that they're facing that are only relevant in Asia. So I'm sure there are a lot more, but here are some that I've learned so far. So, political. In countries like Vietnam, China, and many other Southeast Asian countries, actions are restricted due to political context. For example, an animal rights activist in Vietnam told me that congregation of more than 20 people are not recommended. And in China, there are issues of censorship and restriction of freedom of speech online. Comments and opinions that are critical to the authorities are removed, or the site might be closed altogether. How can we tackle these difficult situations? Some grassroots activists have phrased animal abuse issues as environmental or public health issues to allow them to be able to work alongside local bureaus. This is one way activists have found a way to work in favor, work with the state in favor of the animals. For example, in 2011, there was a cultural exchange program featuring rodeo, and it was organized by the state level between China and the US. But the Chinese animal activists started a campaign against the show, focusing more on the negative social impact that it might be exposing youth to violence and damaging China's reputation by allowing animal cruelty, instead of actually talking about animal welfare directly. And at the end, the show was postponed indefinitely. So these are some unique political challenges that many activists face in Asia, and we're in need for a creative way to work around it. Challenge number 2, communication. So I joined street outreach actions in Japan a few times. And every time I was shocked by how different the reception was in Japan compared to the UK. By then, I'd done enough street activism in London to be confident about engaging in a conversation with people on the street. And as many of you here probably know, a lot of activists use the Socratic method, which is to use the question forms instead of telling them what's right and what's wrong. So I've tried that in Japan. I spotted a few people watching the slaughterhouse footage at the Cube, so I approached them and I asked, do you know how dairy milk is produced? Have you ever heard of the word veganism? And I waited, but there was total silence. Not a single Japanese person that I talked to engaged in a conversation with me. They completely ignored my presence and stood there in utter silence. I felt lost, and I found it very difficult to find the right way to communicate better with them. And I heard very similar experiences from other activists in Japan. Should we be then thinking of another method to engage them in a conversation with people in Japan, instead of just copying the way we do here in the West? So challenge 3, tradition. So-called wet markets are common in many countries in Asia where live animals are butchered in front of customers on order. In the UK, watching slaughterhouses footage can be powerful because it's well hidden from everyday life. But if you grow up in a place where witnessing animal slaughter is a norm, would that be an effective approach for vegan advocacy? It's also not uncommon for restaurants to serve the whole animal, like piglets, birds, and fishes. So while in the West, some are disconnected because they don't see the whole animal, they only see their body parts. But we do see that in Asia. Another cultural example is the annual Pigs of God festival in Taiwan. Pigs are grown up to 6 times their normal size due to forced feeding, and they're slaughtered before a crowd of spectators. And the body of the winner is paraded through a float through the streets. And it takes up to 2 years to fatten the pigs for the contest. They can suffer from organ damage and pressure sores. The pigs in the contest are too obese to walk, so they are dragged by 20 men before an audience, and they watch as they're killed without stunning. Although public cruelty to animals is against the law in Taiwan, the government is reluctant to stop this contest because of backlash from religious groups, and they claim it's part of their tradition. Going back to my own story, in Japan, the combination of Shintoism and Buddhism makes lives of plants and animals equally important and deserve equal amount of gratitude when consuming them. How can we then shift the conversation intelligently if respecting all lives is already so important in their culture? Could we utilize this for our movement? We may need to take these things into consideration when we conduct engagement with people in Asia. Another important element of Asian culture is health. Health is such a big topic across Asia. New products are being advertised everywhere for better health. When a host of a popular TV show says tomatoes are good for anti-aging, the next day tomatoes are sold out from supermarkets. Certainly the word vegan is being recognized amongst young people on social media as one of the Californian healthy lifestyle trends. People often mix up this word vegan with other health trends like gluten-free and detox. Is this a good thing that a plant-based lifestyle is at least getting some attention? Can we utilize this for our movement? Or is it dangerous that the word is so misunderstood and animals are not even in the picture at all? Example of this is macrobiotics. Macrobiotics was started in Japan, but the creator behind it was very smart. So he first made it big in the States and let celebrities like Madonna make it, promote it first before bringing back into Japan. His marketing was very successful. Could we continue doing this with the vegan lifestyle? Climate change has finally started to get some attention in Asia, but not as much as but they are experiencing the effects of climate change firsthand in the form of natural disasters. People are dying. So even though the media and governments are not doing much, people are concerned about it. Would it be then more effective to focus on the shift, to push for the plant-based food system and focus on the systemic change? It will also help reduce animal sufferings. So as you can see, there are many Asian-specific challenges and questions like these, and this is why we're organizing our conference. We don't know what works best or what's the most effective way of advocacy in Asia yet. And we'd like to create a platform for activists in Asia to learn from each other and from our own history and culture rather than just from the West. And across Asia, there are many positive things happening for the movement, and we share many cultural challenges. But due to the geographical barriers and language difference, not enough liaison is being made amongst the activists in Asia, which is hindering the movement to grow. We'd like to unite activists, make a community, exchange experiences and knowledge, learn strategies through workshops together. So thank you very much for coming to my talk, and thank you for joining us on Facebook Live for people in Asia, and please spread the word about our conference with your friends in Asia. If you know any organizations who are interested in working with us, please let me know. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Here. Oh, I can't see it. There. And yeah, we will keep you updated on our platforms. If you have any questions or if you want to get involved, please find me here and chat to me later.